I was doing 4 hours a day of self-care, trying to just like maintain a desire to keep going. And biofeedback, like none of my tools were working anymore. And my life has always kind of worked like that. It was sort of a crash and burn that led me to yoga. And then I became a yoga teacher and really like for 10 years or so just thrived within that technology. Similar thing happened with biofeedback. And this most recent iteration has been psychedelics and plant medicine. Um, so I wound up going down to Mexico 2 years ago and being introduced to a shaman and given a private ayahuasca ceremony from a state of suicidality. I the next day felt completely reconnected to a desire to live, a sense of, being one with everything, connected to everything, vitality pulsing through me like I've never experienced before, trees having a relationship with me that has been ongoing ever since and not gone away, only deepened. Um, it blew my mind. And as a social worker, I see people on psychotropics all the time who are just numbed out and zombified. And I went, oh my God, what are we doing? What are we doing? If this is possible, why are we making people zombies instead of vitally alive and connected and appreciating nature and each other?
Welcome, folks, to Freedom Hub's weekly health, biz, and politics show. I'm Charlie Froman, joined by Jim Grapek. And let me share my screen real quick to show a few past episodes that match the theme of today. And recently we had another fellow yogini, Natalia Shafini. We'll fix her spelling, hopefully. It's not an E. On natural treatments for diabetes. And we'll put this in chat. Here's the surgeon that Jim mentioned earlier who uses ketamine and other alternative ways to relieve you from pain in surgery. That was very fascinating, talking about ways to avoid some of the nausea and other problems from your typical surgery. Um, this was a fantastic event recently on natural treatments for cancer, particularly breast cancer. I think as some of us, including myself, who are commercially engaged in creating the cash patient market, knowing about where to go to get superior natural treatments is a growth industry because people are sick of the mainstream pharma-based treatments that don't work. This one applies directly to today's topic, natural recovery from a mental illness. And this is something Freedom Hub also sponsors. In addition to the payment system creating cash patients, we also sponsor the functional assessment of your blood and DNA to get you on the road towards natural healing. A couple recent events on integrated physician practices that are going more towards natural medicine. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Jim.
Thank you, Charlie. Hi, everybody. I know Lori from a number of years back, Lori Strolin. That's her kind of spiritual name on the screen. She was a co-founder of Voice for Hope that was put together with Jim Turner years ago to help support the biofeedback industry, which the FDA was going after, like everything they go after. She's also into, as you can see, ketamine-assisted therapy, psychology, various EFT, all kinds of things. And now plant medicine is her kind of focus, which we'll talk about. And plant medicine, I mean, I lived near Johns Hopkins. They were doing a lot of research there. It is proving to really help people in terms of curing them of anxiety, depression, other mental health issues, let's say, versus, and that's usually done, can be done in 2 or 3 sessions, controlled sessions, whereas, as we all know, conventional therapies might take months on the couch or, or years, or now it's not even the couch, it's drugs. You're getting SSRIs or some other medication. And that's a whole problem in itself. But of course, there's been a lot of pushback against this. It's been illegal for many years. And the question comes up, why is it illegal? And the first thing that pops into a lot of people's minds is, geez, if this really is helping people and cures them in a couple of sessions, yeah, well, there goes your profit motive is there with big pharma losing, huge revenue streams. If this actually became or was introduced years ago, they would have lost billions of dollars potentially. So I can understand that. Anyway, I'm looking forward to hearing what Lori has to say. And with that, let me turn it over. Oh, and Lori she's in Mexico right now. She's from Connecticut. And Lori, take it away.
Oh gosh, Jim, thanks for having me. It's been so great reconnecting with you. It's been a long time since we formed Voice for Hope in 2010. So that must have been around the time that we met when we were doing Hope on the Hill and bringing alternative practitioners up and engaging them with legislators and educating legislators on the importance of these modalities. And we had a lot of fun back in the day doing that. And I miss Jim Turner with all my heart. Like, the world needs him. But yeah, so I've actually been living in Massachusetts for quite some time, since 2013 again, and just in the last 2 years have been spending my winters down in Mexico studying plant medicine and shamanism and really indigenous cultures at large, re-educating myself from the horrific and education full of lies that I got in America as a child. And really just enjoying Mexican culture, Mexican people, such a beautiful, compassionate, lovely spiritual cosmology that they hold here. And it's very soul nourishing. Yeah.
So why don't you give us an overview of what you're doing, the ketamine-assisted therapy, maybe for starters, as well as the plant medicine.
Yeah.
And what you're finding, results, how you work, and talk about Bold Embrace, your group, your website, but the whole project you put together now.
Yeah. So I'm an LICSW, a clinical social worker, therapist. I'm also a yoga teacher. I was very involved in quantum biofeedback, beginning part of the century. And most recently, I guess, post-pandemic, I think most people that come to psychedelics sort of have a similar story. Ayahuasca saved my life. For a social worker who was isolated during the pandemic with a roommate who only watched TV, it was 24 hours a day, TV news I was having to sort of digest all the time. I crashed and burned and really was kind of, I'm not interested in living life this way anymore on this planet. I don't know what's happening here, but I don't like it. And all the things that I knew, my yoga, I was doing 4 hours a day of self-care, trying to just like maintain a desire to keep going. And biofeedback, like none of my tools were working anymore. And my life has always kind of worked like that. It was sort of a crash and burn that led me to yoga. And then I became a yoga teacher and really, like, for 10 years or so, just thrived within that technology. Similar thing happened with biofeedback. And this most recent iteration has been psychedelics and plant medicine. So I wound up going down to Mexico 2 years ago and being introduced to a shaman and given a private ayahuasca ceremony. From a state of suicidality, the next day felt completely reconnected to a desire to live, a sense of, being one with everything, connected to everything, vitality pulsing through me like I've never experienced before, trees having a relationship with me that has been ongoing ever since and not gone away, only deepened. It blew my mind. And as a social worker, I see people on psychotropics all the time who are just numbed out and zombified. And I went, oh my God, what are we doing? What are we doing? If this is possible, why are we making people zombies instead of vitally alive and connected and appreciating nature and each other and relationship? And so I stayed a little longer and I did a little more. I did one or two more ayahuasca journeys with really good effect, and then came home and back to work and life in America. And it was hard to maintain that without access to these medicines. And so at that point, I think I wound up going up to Canada and getting a hold of some psilocybin to do a psilocybin journey and to do some microdosing. And that was also super effective. In my psilocybin journey, it was the sweetest thing. Los Niños Santos has become a very dear, I call them my little cheerleaders. Like, I feel like they're my partners in life. Like, they really like give me guidance and they cheer me on, and they sort of light the way for me. And so in this one, I did a hero journey, first trip out, with the Johns Hopkins psilocybin playlist and blindfolds, and a friend just kind of looking out for me in the other room. And I don't know, for 6 or 8 hours, they took me on this neon roller coaster ride of like what's possible in my life. And it'll actually make me cry. It touches me still to this day so deeply. And they said, listen, Lori, you want to do yoga and retreats, and you want to be in Mexico, and you want to travel. Like, it's all there for you. It's all there for you. It's all for you. It's all for you. Just step into it. Like, it's all set up. You have all the connections. And it just had never dawned on me that I could choose that life or create that life. I was just really kind of stuck in the way we get stuck in American culture and day to day. And so from that journey onward, things rapidly improved, and I signed up for IPI, the Integrative Psychiatry Institute's psychedelic psychotherapy training, which covers psilocybin and MDMA and ketamine. And I'd also joined up immediately coming home from the ayahuasca experience. Since ketamine was the only legal psychedelic in America that I could use with my patients, my clients, I signed up with Journey Clinical. And they take care of the prescribing and psychiatric aspect and work with clinicians so that clinicians can do the assisted therapy part. And I have seen such beautiful results with ketamine. Initially having been introduced to plant medicines and having an affinity for natural substances, I thought, oh, well, ketamine's synthetic, but since it's the only legal one, I'll take it, I'll use it, I'll try it, it'll help people. And then as soon as psilocybin or any of the natural ones are legal, I'll just dump ketamine. But honestly, ketamine is so gentle and so sweet and beautiful that I wouldn't give it up. Actually, as soon as psilocybin is legal, I'll be thrilled, but I still won't give up the ketamine because I've seen such people with trauma, people with depression, suicidality, anxiety, OCD, CPTSD. That's sort of been my wheelhouse of work with ketamine, and the results have been just beautiful and astounding and kind of effortless. Psychotherapy can sometimes be, like, how do you teach a brain that doesn't know a path to follow a new path? It's really hard. And ketamine makes it so gentle and easy. So I've really been enjoying the work. Yeah.
So what's the difference? Maybe you could describe what the ketamine journey is like versus psilocybin.
Yeah. Well, so I use sublingual lozenges, and there's different ways to administer ketamine. Obviously, you can do intravenous, you can do intramuscular injections, but I use sublingual. So it's a lozenge that dissolves in the mouth. And just to prevent toxicity, because ketamine can be, toxic if overused, especially to the kidneys and bladder. So they hold it in their mouth and swish for 12 to 15 minutes and then spit it out. and you only absorb about 25% that way, but it's enough to either work psycholytically, which is a lower dose and you're a little bit more conscious, and you can do, I tend to use a lot of internal family systems work if I work with a lower dose, where people maybe have a part of their psyche that they want to get into better relationship with or heal or get to know, period. And we can do some deep meditation and sort of guided imagery, hypnosis kind of stuff that way. Or they can do a psychedelic dose where it's a little bit higher a dose, and it's more likely that you're having the typical psychedelic images and graphics and geometrics and all that kind of stuff. And then usually they're just listening to headphones and a playlist, and we're using music with certain frequency to help turn the brain on in whatever ways are the goals. Yeah, so.
Does the psychedelic dose have more of an impact on people, do you think? I mean, because when you start to hallucinate, obviously, it's like, wow, I saw an elephant or whatever it is. And,
Yeah.
I've never seen that before. I would think it would kind of open some cracks up in the reality.
I think that ketamine is a little bit different. I mean, everyone talks about ego death in psychedelics as being sort of, a keystone of the healing. And while I believe that with plant medicines, that hasn't been my experience with ketamine. With ketamine, my experience is more that the neuroplasticity will work even at the lower doses. And it's actually hard to get an ego death type psychedelic experience with the sublingual. I mean, you really have to take a lot to have that experience.
Yeah, okay. Charlie, I see your hands up. Let me ask one quick thing related to our last talk, which was on natural approaches to diabetes, because I saw that on your website or in your bio. I actually watched one of your videos. Were you doing that? I mean, like kind of using feedback primarily to help type 2 diabetes patients at one point? Or have you had success with that? Or we want to just skip over that? Or what do you want to say?
Oh, wow. When I was in the biofeedback world, and I was one of the trainers, I was running around
Yeah.
all over the country and internationally teaching that technology. But I was also helping with the marketing and education. So we had put together a year-long community service project where we took a topic each month, and one of the months was diabetes. And so I had put together a protocol for how to use the biofeedback system effectively to help with stress with kidneys, adrenals, blood sugar, that kind of thing, pancreas. And then also like a little video and a public service announcement. And the idea with that it was called the Indigo Cares Project. And the idea was that practitioners would be able to just download this information and offer their communities as a way to outreach and provide education and service, community service also, on the topic of diabetes. So I think that might be what you were
Yeah. And
referring
can
to.
you
Yeah.
can you speak to any success in that area? I mean, with
Oh my goodness. Yeah, there are doctors who were using blood, some measure of blood analysis. And after some of the biofeedback sessions, you could actually, see in the blood that the relationship to sugar was different. Definitely. I also have a girlfriend who was diabetic and on insulin and was able to get herself off of insulin with just managing her stress using the biofeedback system pretty regularly. So yeah, I was always amazed by that technology.
Yeah.
Frequency is where it's at, right?
Yes, that's right. Charlie.
Aaron Rodgers put ayahuasca on the map, and he did a lot of alternative treatments that really exposed a lot of regular folks to these different approaches to figuring out one's life, darkness retreats, ayahuasca. And he did a book club on a sports channel. And here he is that week supporting a Miguel Ruiz book. What do you think about celebrities using their platforms to educate folks about alternative ways to figure out their paths, or just a lot of us admire what he did
Hmm.
to expose people to a lot of offbeat kind of ways of thinking.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think the public needs education. I think there's so much fear around these medicines. They've been stigmatized for so long, and celebrities have a lot of clout. They have a lot of weight, and so people tend to really take what they say a little more seriously. I think it's great.
We
Moves
had
things
just to
along.
jump in, if I get his name right, Novak Djokovic, right? He's like the world tennis champion. What does he owe his success to? The skio.
Oh yeah, I forgot
Yeah,
about
there's
that. A
advertisements with
lot of
him saying,
athletes.
this
Yeah,
is it. A lot of athletes are using that, but
yeah,
most people have no idea it exists.
yeah.
What is it?
Armstrong was using it. People were working on
Yeah,
Neil
yeah,
Armstrong
Lance.
at a point. I mean, I'm
Lance.
sorry. Yeah, Lance Armstrong.
Lance.
Sorry.
Could have been Neil
Yeah.
too.
But
It's the
yeah,
biofeedback I also do with these devices that are now coming out of Hungary. That Jim Turner was their attorney and working this whole
yeah,
project. Quantum biofeedback. Yeah,
yeah.
they're amazing.
These even yoga, right? And when you hold your body in a certain position, it generates certain frequencies, certain energy. It's about the shape and the angles and um same thing with the biofeedback. It's about the shape and the frequencies of certain, translating everything from what we see in the 3D world as an object, a material, an organ, a bacteria, whatever, translating that into frequency. And then it's a little bit more malleable, right? We can relate to it in a different way. It doesn't have to be solidified in our physical bodies, it can sort of be wind. um, I'm really interested. I'm just starting to play around now with doing psychedelics with the biofeedback, creating an intention and a container with certain vibrations and words being programmed and overlaid onto like your intention being actually vibrating in the space as frequency. And it's been like really powerful. I've done it with ketamine with a couple of my clients. The results were kind of mind blowing. I'm really interested to study this a little bit more. Um,
There was, I took a course on kind of the psychological use of the device with Adam, and amazing stuff also. Just using that, working with them, asking the questions, I saw the results. I was
yeah,
pretty blown away. So if you add in some of the things you're talking about, yeah, I could see
yeah,
that. Really
yeah.
good. Charles.
One more shared screen question. You mentioned what your friends were recommending you do. Uh, Go be brave and do retreats as a business. And I wrote down fear of responsibility because I think a lot of us would like to start businesses but are afraid of the effort and how we would
Mm,
even do it,
mm-hmm,
and how would we avoid bankruptcy?
yeah.
Hargobind has a Casa Om retreat in on the Potomac River upstream from DC,
Mm,
and a second Casa Om down in Tulum.
mm,
And he's really a go-getter. And he did this show with us on how to consider a yoga retreat or even how to run a yoga retreat or a
mm-hmm,
retreat in any kind of retreat.
mm-hmm,
Tell us more about that thought you mentioned earlier. Are you going to incorporate the travel retreat as part of your business? And tell us about
mm,
that thought.
thanks. Yeah. I'm just gearing up for that. I am about to move into the jungle of Puerto Morelos to a little property, a beautiful little property that is on the Ruta de Cenotes. Cenotes in Mexico are these underground lakes, and there's a chain of them, and they're said to perhaps have been made by asteroids or some astral projection of some kind. But I have a property there that has its own little cenote and a temazcal and a yoga palapa, and we're going to start with just sort of glamping. Um, right now, I'm really connected to and loving being connected to psychedelic psychotherapists and these colleagues that are pioneering this new way of healing. Um, and so I'm in a lot of peer support groups and in the different community and training programs and schools. So I'm bringing people down here to meet with and learn from indigenous elders of different traditions. So we've got the Mazatecan tradition, Bernardino Sabina, Maria Sabina's, he's actually Bernardino Garcia Martinez, but he is Maria Sabina's grandson, who is the grandmother of Niño Santo psilocybin healing. And he's become a good friend and is part of our ancestral archives project. So that's what I'm starting with, but I'm also finding that a lot of my clients that have seen me down here now most of the winter, these last few winters, are saying, "Hey, can I come? Can you get me in touch with the right people?" And I don't feel quite ready to hold ceremony space for large groups of people. I'm still kind of baffled that shamans can take the medicine and be in that frequency and still have enough of their wits about them to take care of others. I'm still pretty new to the medicine myself, and I want to be respectful of traditions. And I think there's a lot of neo shamanism happening down here, where people have taken the medicine a few times and they're a coach or whatever, and they think they know how to do it, and there's a lot of people getting harmed. So I want to be careful of that. But yeah, I'm definitely interested in bringing people together in community and learning and respect for these traditions and these medicines.
Are there any statistics? Of course, they can be fudged every way, but you mentioned people can be harmed. Obviously, people that are looking for this sort of help, and therapy or going to plant medicine or trying it, generally are already kind of in that I'm harmed space, right?
Vulnerable.
Traumas or something.
Super vulnerable.
Well,
yeah.
They're vulnerable, but they're already having issues. Do you think though it's worth it? And let me add this to it. Some of the states now, I think Oregon, Colorado, you can buy psilocybin.
Mm-hmm.
You can get microdose or get more or whatever. You just buy it. It's legal.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of instructions they come with the packages, but if somebody was interested in going, okay, maybe I can't afford a therapist, or I'm not that interested, but what microdosing, maybe that's a starting point. I'm kind of tired, or I want to sharpen my brain. Why don't you start microdosing? Tell us a little more about that, because everybody, I confess I was growing my own mushrooms, so I'm on top of this. But for most people, like, okay, where do they get started if they want to like put their foot in the water?
Yeah.
What do you recommend?
Yeah, I personally found the company Microdosify very, very helpful. They'll email you pre-measured powder versions of microdose psilocybin. For me, that was super helpful on my path of healing. It's still not legal, so at first I was really nervous about receiving these things in the mail and my license and all this stuff. And but it's a really great place to start. And there's other companies like that popping up more and more. Canada, there's storefronts, dispensaries. You can just walk in Toronto or Vancouver. They're getting shut down. There's been some heat around them here and there, but I think California and Colorado have had a few places open up and get shut down too. So some caution is necessary, but a lot of people are growing their own and starting to learn about this. And the medicine itself is, just for the neuroplastic benefit, is amazing. Like all of a sudden you have access to responding to your life in a new way, perspectives on life and planet Earth that are new, really pretty profound and gentle.
How would you compare that to cannabis, for example? Sorry, Sharon. Well, actually, let's think about that. Let's go to Sharon, and then
Sure,
we'll come back to you.
sure.
Hi. Well, thank you. Yeah, I've been very interested in this topic for a while. And as a disclaimer for myself, in case anyone hears this, I personally have not tried and would not try this type of medicine or practice, just spiritually. I'm also a naturopathic doctor, so my spiritual practice frowns on doing anything that would alter your state of consciousness. So we practice things that are soul travel, where we get more in touch with who our true self is. But right now I have members of my family and people I know and love that are involved in this that I'm kind of concerned about. And one is a young man who is addicted to ketamine. And I don't know how that happens, but it's a problem. He's doing it often, I guess. And then I have another family member that is who's an alcoholic and is considering the psilocybin. So I'm, and then I have a good friend who's a medical intuitive, and a great deal of her practice is helping people to release entities that become attached to them as they're doing these journeys. So, and I think spiritually, that's one of the reasons why it is frowned upon in my path to do these types of practices, even though I know people have had some benefit. So what are some of your precautions that you might do to make sure people don't get addicted or don't get these entity attachments when they're out of their bodies and journeying like this?
Yeah. Those are really good points, Sharon. I'm sorry to hear about some of your family struggles. Ketamine is an addictive medicine. A lot of us are worried that this could be the next opioid epidemic. It's been abused recreationally for years and years and years, with really poor outcomes. And it can be really damaging to the body when it's used excessively. It's such a new field. I don't know that we have answers or precautions or a sense of how much is too much or how long is too long. And which is part of what I love about the camaraderie of pioneering this is, we're all in peer support groups all the time, talking to each other about all of these issues, and trying to find answers that work. But it's too soon. Like we don't have protocols. Ketamine is one of the safest, also at the same time as it's addictive and can be harmful. It's also one of the safest medicines. It's used all over the world in surgery and for lots of other reasons. And so, it's hard to tell.
And certain people, that's just a lot of safe things people become addicted to, and even of course alcohol is the number one thing, which is totally legal, but I think more people are harmed by alcohol than basically anything, and more benefit. I've heard of more benefit coming from mushrooms and things like that, although again I wouldn't endorse it personally. But I find this fascinating, and I wish you really good success with it, and keeping these things in mind. I also work with frequencies, so a device that similar to the Skio.
I wanted to jump in because Sharon, I know you do. We've talked about that. The device. Well, first of all, you have a friend. You brought up entities. If that's what do you do if somebody gets an attachment? Well, you can call your friend, or I call my friend, or she calls her friend. So it seems like we're all having friends now that can do this, which is great. And the devices we have, I know, I don't know about the indigo. I know the adductor, which I use. Do you want to remove this attachment or entity? It'll show that up, an extra brainwave or something. And it's not perfect, but a lot of times it'll work. It'll do the job. So there are tools out there. to help with that anyway, right?
And the more important thing is teaching people, I think, to recognize it's all frequency. So an entity is you're tuning into a frequency other than your own, right? It's all, and why are you doing that? So to train people to recognize, this frequency doesn't feel like my frequency. How do I ground back into my frequency? And also to stay well nourished and spiritually grounded is super important in any of this work. I mean, humans need to learn how to do this, right?
Yeah,
so
that's a good
and
point.
there are ways using frequencies, even sacred words can protect you in a way. But if you're doing things that are unadvised, ill-advised, sometimes these protections won't be there, so you can learn those lessons. But
well, even ill-advised, maybe that's what this person is supposed to do, right? That's how we learn. It's all, as you were saying,
learning.
It's all consciousness. I mean, it really is. The viruses.
When I think, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say every bacteria, every virus, everything going on, they all have a specific consciousness, kind of a specific task or role when we get sick, right? Malaria. I mean, we can go through these fascinating stories, but I think the biggest thing right now at this time in our history is to start recognizing this, that we're all part of this consciousness, whether it's the ketamine, whether it's a virus, whether, an entity came on and you're thinking one day, I never liked chocolate, and you go, okay, that's not me. Let me call my friend, This is changing us, which is great. Anyway, did you want to say something?
If viruses even exist, that's a whole nother ball of wax.
Yeah.
So
why are they any different than an entity? In my mind, they're
exactly.
the same.
Exactly. Charlie, what's up?
You.
Oh, I just want to say one more thing about alcohol, right? Alcohol, Native Americans call alcohol spirits, like spirit stealers. And the idea is, and we think about as a naturopath, when you want to make a remedy, you take the plant, you put it in alcohol, it distills the spirit out of the plant, and you use that as medicine. We're drinking alcohol all the time. So where's our spirit going? And who's doing the acting when our spirit is extracted from us? What's happening there? And our culture, it's, we know the epidemic of alcohol. Like,
we could talk about.
I guess it all comes down to
we could talk about that, Lori, but that'd be another show and they'll definitely come after us. So. But you're right. Absolutely. Charlie.
Couple questions here. I'll start with one if I can have a follow-up. You mentioned, the failure in your path of yoga and biofeedback before you kind of arrived at plant medicine. You want to talk more about that? I imagine that's fairly typical of people, especially if we consider that the real epidemic in the West, isn't COVID, whatever that is, but is chronic disease. That's gone up from 10% in 1990 to 50% by 2010. And that sets people on journeys because their primary care doctor and specialist, offer a pill from pharma that doesn't work. So you have to teach yourself and experiment. Let's try the naturopath. Let's try the chiropractor, acupuncture, yoga, biofeedback. Talk about that journey that more and more humans are finding themselves on, whether they like it or not.
Wow, that's a big question. The thing that comes to mind for me is, we all have tools. I think there are moments of severity and crisis of culture and spiritual crisis that demand new learning, new ways, new frequencies, right? I think sometimes we get attenuated to the tools that have always worked. Like for some reason, we need a new download. We need a new version. For me, that's how I experience it. And the biggest part of it for me was just a disillusionment with American culture and even family members who could not deal with the fact that I was having such a bad time, that like no one could talk about suicidality. No one could talk about the level of depression and hopeless despair I was experiencing. It was like, the whole toxic positivity thing. I was getting this from my sisters and my lover and my son, like people who definitely were invested in me staying alive, but couldn't figure out like what to say or what to do, or how to be helpful. And so what they did was just sort of shun and exile and shame. And I think we do that in American culture to each other so much. And so for me, part of the healing was coming down to Mexico and being met by a complete and total stranger who was willing to scoop me off their doorstep and carry me off to the jungle, and just saw that this was a human in deep pain and suffering, and did what they do, because we have to look out for each other, and we have to love each other, and we have to help heal each other. And to me, that was probably as much transformative as the medicine. Was the culture of compassion and connection and true caring and responsibility for each other that, in my opinion, is just so severely lacking in America.
Yeah.
I can follow up with you, Jim, actually. Is that compassion that Lori mentioned one of the at least unspoken goals of your pavilion?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's the whole pavilion concept is really about reuniting community, bringing us back together, bringing science and spirit back together. Like, because there's only one being in the universe, and we're all part of that, basically. I know it's kind of hard to fathom for some people, but yes, it's all about community. It's about like sorting this out and evolving, because we need to get past this, the violence, the dysfunctional families, every function, it's like every family's been dysfunctional. Our parents, our grandparents, everybody. So what happens? All the kids are dysfunctional. I mean, but we know, especially now, we know the answers. We know how to fix this, whether from plant medicine to EFT to meditation and yoga, all these things. And yes, that all comes into the pavilion behind me, and that's where we need to go, and that's what we're doing. Thank you. Yeah,
I love it.
One more follow up. Go ahead, Lori.
Oh, I love this concept. I think it's so imperative that we come back in community with each other, and America is lost in this regard. Everything is competition and separation and division, and
well, yeah, let me jump. Okay, so competition, we've been lied to about so many things, as we all know, so I don't, but one of my favorites is survival of the fittest, right? That's where the competitive thing, you got to get it or he'll take your spot, or you'll lose that job or something.
Yeah.
Oh, that's how nature works. And they've been, programming us with that for many years. And the fact is, that's not the truth. They actually came out and said a couple of years ago, it might have been 10 years ago now, that nature works in cooperation. That's only in the outliers, that's the exception to the rule, survival of the fittest. The rule is everybody cooperates and works in harmony, which, imagine if we actually did that, we could, build amazing things, which is the whole point here. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's back to that indigenous wisdoms, right? And so as I resurrect Voice for Hope and this ancestral archive project, they have so much. It's not just their medicines that we're stealing, it's their cosmology and their compassion and their sense of exactly what you're speaking about, Jim, that community. Like, we're here, we'll do much better if we help each other and play to everyone's strengths and uniqueness. And there's room for all of us. Yeah.
I see a new face. Sabine, you're up. Hi.
Good morning. Yeah, that's my first time that I'm dialing into your Wednesday class, actually. And I am stoked to hear this to start my day. usually I talk about things like that. And it's so lovely to see. And it is for me, yeah, it's what Laurie said. I feel very, very strongly about it, but the plants right now are helping us to move forward by going back to our roots. And I see there's a lot happening now with the women coming in. I've been with the medicine for a long time. I'm an alternative medical person here, Ayurveda and frequency medicine, and I'm bringing the whole things together. I'm originally from East Germany. So I grew up with the Russians, and they were always very big on biophysics, so biofeedback devices, but they were not bound by the same vow to biochemistry and patents and trademarks as it is here in the West. And from the Eastern Europe, I made it to Western Germany, and then 25 years ago, I came to California, and I'm working a lot with plant assistant for people who are very much just done with the medical system, who are ready to kill themselves, who live in so much pain, who've lost everything and everybody, who are most of the time broke. I don't advertise anywhere. I just trust spirit really and the plants that these people find me through the jungle somehow of consciousness, because I'm living in Southern California, not in the jungle really. It's more like a entitled upscale fake spiritual realm here. I guess we all know what I'm talking about. This toxic positivity just makes me want to purge. I want to sometimes run with a bucket from town. When I moved to California, everybody's always happy. Oh, how are you today? How much time do you have? Yeah, because ultimately, this was the same, this lockdown thing. I see the difference from the East Bloc to the West, and from the West to America, actually. The key secret I find politically here with keeping people locked into this medical system that doesn't work, that produces what, since 2001, the number one cause of death is suicide in young people. And we're not talking about this. This is obviously, we don't have to wait for that, because this lockdown, this isolation, this we don't talk about it, has been already exerted on the American people, the young people the most. Yeah, I don't even want to go into what we all know, what's it's not coming our way, it's already there. Yeah. And this constant distraction, this constant running away. And I feel this is what I see most of the time, especially with all the city kids. By kids, I mean adults, quote unquote, growing ups that never grew up. When they're in this community with plants, and all of a sudden, total strangers after a weekend, they know each other better. They feel more loved and understood than ever in their lives by their most loved ones, their husbands, their wives, their families, their this is so simple to bring us back together. And I do believe that, like, that I dialed in this morning. I'm so glad I did, because I was like, should I do my coffee enema or should I do this? And on my liver detox. And so, and I chose you guys. I teach yoga class really soon, and and I just wanted to like cheer you on and tell you how incredibly blessed we are that we're all coming together now, even if it's just small groups. But I do strongly know, I don't believe anything anymore. I know, or I don't know. I don't believe. I just, I'm not, no. But this thing of what you're doing here, bringing it to the Americans and especially to the physicians, because what Sharon said is what I encounter a lot. Doctors see their patients get better. They ask, what did they do? And then when this comes up, they're like, oops. Can you talk about a little bit, like, are there networks where you educate, like the regular, excuse me, I'm not trying to be arrogant, but when you go for medical school, you are brainwashed. Your brain soiled afterwards. So once you come out of this educational, how do you have places where regular people can go, and I could send them and say, here, yeah, for regular doctors, that their patients have no longer the fear, of saying, hey, you know what, I'm not better because your therapy worked. I actually worked with somebody, and for a few months, we did the combo, and we did this, and we did some, medicine. Yeah. That's why I'm better.
Yeah. I I love being part of the psychedelic psychotherapy circles. You know, these are pioneering minds who are really hungry to find better solutions than we have, and they are open-minded, open-hearted, visionary people. I tried marketing. There's so many burnt out healthcare providers. Like most of America's healthcare system it's really in bad shape right now. There's so much burnout. There's so much just people are retiring and not coming back to work. And so I really tried to market ketamine therapy to address medical professionals' burnout. I offered a few groups, and it's not ready yet. At least in my neck of the woods in New England, people are a little more standoffish and hesitant to jump on. I'm sure in California, something like that's going really well already, and it'll wave across the country eventually. But in terms of, yeah, I think this is probably going to be a grassroots, ground up sort of movement where people are desperate for solutions that work, not being given a pill that's going to turn me into a zombie and just keep me on the machine feeling nothing. When this is possible to feel this connection and enliveness.
Thank you, Sabine. Charlie.
And Dankeschön, Sabine. Das war genau, stimmt. Ich bin in Eile. Ja, meine Frau ist aus Österreich gekommen. So let's talk, Ravaya, about the state of your market. So how is your peer groups you're part of? Is it growing? Is it getting traction? Talk about where it is now and where it's going.
Yeah, it's growing really fast. I know that Journey Clinical just hit 1,000 practitioners that have joined their group. I've been with them for about a year and a half. I think there was, I don't know, maybe 50 practitioners when I started. So if that gives you a sense of the scope of growth, it's pretty big. And they're not in all the states. They're only in like a handful of states. I know IPI, the school that I did my training with, Integrative Psychiatry Institute, I think they have graduated about 1,200 providers, and that includes psychiatrists and medical professionals, not just therapists. Journey is just therapists. So, and they're charging $10,000 for their trainings. And they're not even looking to invite real Indigenous leaders and wisdom holders to be part of those trainings. They're taking a pretty strictly medical clinical model. And I don't think you can work in this field in that way. There's going to be stuff that comes up energetically, be that psychic attack or entities or Kundalini awakenings or nervous system, just, problems with anxiety and sleep that arise from opening up a new memory or a new part of your brain. And for me, that's part of what drove me down to Mexico to start studying with the Indigenous, is like, I want to be really well versed in the spiritual aspects of these plant medicines, because that's the realm they're working in, clearly. It's not just biochemical, for sure.
Also, just to ask about this or interject, ayahuasca, some of these journeys are 4, 5, 6 hours or more. I can't imagine being there with your doctor, right, or somebody where you can't be in the office. I guess you could be, but it'd be pretty weird.
Yeah. MDMA is going to be legal really soon. And those sessions are going to be 3, 4 hours, and they need to be administered and supervised by a medical professional on site, according to the FDA regulations around this. So how that's going to fit in an insurance model, we have no idea yet. And even as just ketamine providers, those sessions minimum are 2 hours, 3 for someone who's really going deep, right?
Right.
There's no insurance codes for that. So we either eat the extra hour and bill for 1 hour, or we have to, have the patient sign something that says, we're not double billing the insurance and them, and then charge a little bit. It's all new. We're finding our way.
Well,
and
won't the doctors have to construct a jungle room on site in the empty commercial buildings. Everyone telecommuting, so they'll grow the vines all over the building, jungle gyms, cots, flowing water, hire some
I love
hippies
it.
who speak their language.
And we could do hydroponics too.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Otherwise, yes, it would be hell to be stuck in a doctor's office. I think
Here's
your
the
point is
thing.
well taken. You need to be with the traditionalists down in
Yeah.
Mexico.
Here's the thing, right? Applying these medicines to a medical model that is already broken and not serving and trying to make them fit in that model doesn't make any sense at all. We need to change the model. And my belief is actually that psychedelics are bringing the advent of that change. They are driving that change. And I've seen it already in the ketamine world. I mean, it's not a traditional psychedelic, but there's all these bigwig companies that came in hard hitting with opening clinics all over the country. And it was just a remote model where no one was really getting care or integration or prep or, it was a get rich quick scheme. And they all went out of business. And so there's a law of spirit and karma at work with these plant medicines entering healthcare, where I keep saying we're going to bring the sacred back into the clinical, right? Psychology means the study of the soul. There's no soul in American
Really?
psychology, not that I can see. Yeah.
That's a cool concept.
I
The
want
study
to.
of the soul.
Can we have a moment of appreciation or reverence in memory of Terence McKenna?
Yeah.
Or Jim Turner.
And Jim Turner.
Yeah, but I mean, Terence, who was like the father of psychedelics and
Mhm.
visionary guy, just also great.
Yeah. Yep.
But I want to, we're coming up to the end of our time, but I do want to bring up cannabis again, because first of all, it's the most talked about, the most used now. It's become like the legalized the whole thing for money, et cetera, et cetera. But it is a plant medicine. I mean, it definitely.
Absolutely.
I don't know how. I don't think it's medical licenses and then there's the recreational. Do you think we're approaching it properly, or is there a way to? Are you using it? Are you helping people like learn about what is that spirit in there? Let's just talk about that for a second.
Thank you for bringing that up. I think that's super important. I did do a cannabis ceremony. I'm going to shout out to my friend Shannon Brown, who does beautiful cannabis sound healing ceremonies. And it was as profound as a mushroom small dose, hero journey kind of session. I was blown away. I was like, oh my God, all this time I've been smoking marijuana the wrong way. I had no idea that it could be this spiritually profound, psychedelic-like experience. And it really was. It gave me access to really good guidance. I actually was able to connect with my late father and have a conversation during this guided ceremony. Truly, truly beautiful. I think we're missing the boat on cannabis the way we're using it in the country. Yeah.
A lot of folks get high and go to yoga class.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yoga on
whatever,
cannabis is nice. Yeah.
Whatever works for you. And I just wanted to add the pavilion, since you brought that up again, Charlie, as far as the community thing, one thing I think is important, which we'll have in there, is a time bank. So everybody can put in their time. It's not a money thing. It's like, I can help with, carpentry or hairdressing or taking out chores or whatever it is. And that way we all get to meet each other, people when they want to. I mean, you can pay too for stuff, but incorporating that into daily life. And I think that's a nice way to kind of cross-pollinate the community. And then look, biofeedback, the plant medicine, there are all these new vocational areas I see opening up in healthcare, right? Yeah. And how everything has to be redone. So with plenty of opportunities for this, and that's we can offer that. Okay.
Yeah, beautiful.
I guess if we're done with questions, or any final comments you want to make, or if not, or add that into how people can reach you. And Bold Embrace, you maybe say 2 words on that, because you're doing cool stuff.
Yeah. So Bold Embrace is the name of my company. I have a team of clinicians that cover different areas of life. I have Nyla Alaudin. She's a tantra worker, sex therapist, relationship coach. I have a couple of other clinicians. I have a nurse on the team. And really, Bold Embrace is about bringing to you that which otherwise you may not want to look at or feel, right? Like that's the job of our life, is how do we, be okay in the discomfort, find comfort in the unknown, bring it to us, like lean into what's scary. That's the biggest advice of any psychedelic journey, what is life anyway? Like, how can we lean in and embrace boldly what might frighten us?
How can we unlearn who we become after everyone has told us who to be and what to do? Our parents, our doctors, our preachers, clergy. And how do we become who we came here to be and have fun and follow our passion, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you on social media, or you want to share a website, email?
Boldembrace.org is the website. We do intensive, individualized retreats, mini retreats. We have therapy, we have end of life consultation, we have psychedelic therapies, yoga classes, education, nutrition, sex therapy, relationship therapy, tantra, all that kind of stuff. So that's that. And then voiceforhope.world is, we are building a river of reciprocity back toward the indigenous who have held these medicines sacred for all these years. And despite Western culture's horrific atrocities against them, they're still willing to share this medicine with us because they know that the healing of the planet requires the white people to heal. I find that beyond humbling a gift. And so I really want to support it. I don't know if you guys knew about the MAPS conference, but there was a big psychedelic science conference in Denver last May. And at the end of it, the indigenous folks took over the stage and really politely, respectfully spoke about, like, guys, white people, you're doing that colonial, patriarchal, nasty thing again, where you steal from us and you don't know what the fuck you're doing, and you're going to create, sorry, my mouth. You don't know what you're doing, and you're going to create big problems. You already screwed it up with tobacco, with opium, with coca. Like, how many more times do we have to tell you? Invite us to the table, learn our ways. It's important. Include us, respect us. It's important. And I took that deeply to heart. And the mushrooms started talking to me and saying, oh, this is the project that you have to do. You have to start creating this archive of wisdoms, and it'll help preserve and share and educate and trickle into American healthcare and culture. And I tried to say, no, not me, guys. I'm not a videographer. I'm not a web designer. I'm not even really a business person. Not me. And they said, no, it's you, it's you, it's you. And I've been blessed with a relationship with Bernardina Sabina and Tata Nana Juvenal from the Chichimeca tribe and some Shipibo elders. And people are coming and they want to see the white American culture and, European cultures heal. They want to see reciprocity. They want to see respect and faith and love between us. And however we can all facilitate that, the faster we all get where we need to go, I think.
And one more thing, Lori, talk to the generic prospect who needs what you have to offer now or the next couple of months. What is that person going through right now, and why should that person contact you, and what will they get out of it?
Yeah, I am really, really loving working with women with CPTSD with ketamine. So CPTSD is complex post-traumatic stress disorder. It's not even in the DSM yet, but when it gets into the DSM will disappear, and I'm looking forward to that. It's what you were saying, Jim, is, we are not raising our children to have security or attachment or healthy sense of self-love, self-esteem, community, belonging, place. All of these things are indigenous values that have been so lost. And in our culture, we're raising people that don't know how to feel, that don't have good coping skills, that just want to cut each other down and compete and judge and shame and divide. And there's an epidemic of this. I think anyone raised in the United States in the 70s is gonna, if they start to look at CPTSD, they're gonna find exactly, oh my God, that's me. Oh my God, that's me. Oh my God, that's me. And there's this beautiful undoing of and reconnecting with your own innate intelligence, your own high self, your own sense of love and purpose and belonging that happens using these psychedelic medicines most of the time. And so people dealing with trauma, with suicidality, please reach out. I can get you connected to, you know, people doing ketamine therapy in the States legally. And, you know, I'm also happy to serve in a harm reduction way, which is what the dictates of my license legally allow right now, in connecting people with plant medicines that aren't quite legal yet. So
I just want to add one thing. I know we're running a little over, but I have one of my advisors, the Pavilion advisors, is a Shaolin monk. And I grew up in martial arts. I still train in martial arts. And the spiritual, the physical, the confidence, everything that gives you. I mean, I would love to see all these kids, everybody, at least having some background in that, right? Women, self-defense, just so you can carry yourself. It's important. And yeah, as opposed to the snowflakes, right?
yeah. And which also brings me back to something Sabina said in terms of the return of the divine feminine and the reestablishment of respect for women and as creators of life, as bringers of life to this planet that has been so long forgotten and abused. And I feel the plant medicines are also ushering this back. They are of the earth, Mother Earth, divine feminine. They are our biggest advocates. And I really see healing on all of these levels coming with the plant medicines. So